What we want to do is take a deep dive now into the bonus Army. This morning I talked about the 4 different types of ways that you could frame questions for a history lab. Options, contextual, historiographical, or source-specific. What we want to do is wade into this question, and we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to conduct what I call a history trial. History trials function a little bit different than a regular trial. For one, there's no lawyers, which is good unless you're a lawyer. 2, it's going to require you to testify in front of court, but you can only testify from the perspective of the source that you have in front of you. And so it's going to be essential for you to understand who is telling you about the bonus Army, when they're telling you about the bonus Army, and what specifically they have to say about the question here in terms of responsibility and rationale for removing the bonus Army. So if you grab the source, on the back you'll see a chart like this. It's very similar to the one that you had for the Panama Canal. The first column is going to ask you about the subtext or the context. What do we know about your author? What's their background? What might have motivated them to produce this piece of information? And when was this particular piece of information created? And how might that time period impact your source? And then the last column is, based on your source, who's responsible for removing the bonus Army and why was it done? And if you flip your source to the front, you'll notice that this is formatted a little bit differently. When my state moved in a Common Core direction, we weren't a Common Core state, but we moved in that direction, there was a lot of discussion about how ELA and social studies could work together. So one of the things that we developed at my school was a common way for students to annotate anything that they read. So you'll notice that your source, on the left-hand side, there's a box where you can take your notes. On the right-hand side is the actual text of your source, and you can annotate that, circle, underline, highlight, whatever you feel that you want to do, and then record your information on the back. So if you want to take about 7 or 8 minutes, introduce yourself to your source, its author, when it was created, and then read through and find out what your source says about the removal of the bonus Army. In a second, we're going to organize a little bit differently. You're going to be organized with all the people that read the same source as you. When you get together, you want to make sure you understand who's telling you the information, when they're providing it to you, how those things might impact the information that you're getting, and then what your source has to say about the events surrounding the removal of the bonus Army. When you pull together, you want to make sure everybody in your group fully understands your source, because you don't know yet what 2 lucky people are going to be selected from your group to come up and take the stand and testify in front of history court. So on the front of your source, underneath the first box, it should say source 1, source 2, source 3, etc. If you have source 1, you're going to be up here in the front corner.
Now, one of the big things in here is it's constitutional law, but one of the things that isn't mentioned is that the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 says you can't use federal troops in law enforcement. So claiming that it was a constitutional act is questionable at best.
Well, he's maintaining here that Hoover's trying here to explain why the order was given to remove it. And, you know, that just the fact that he's trying to explain the action kind of shows he's got to take responsibility for causing the action, even if he may have what he seems to think are good reasons for it. He ultimately gave the order for it to happen. Part of it to happen. Now, he does say some of it they took a little bit further than his intentions were not to move them but to surround them.
Right.
I think he's trying to shuck the responsibility. He's trying to shuck that off on somebody else. But it's just like in the movie The Few Good Men. We want to know who gave the code red. You know, and he ultimately gave it. Because he is the President of the United States. He has the supreme command to call out federal troops.
Right.
This isn't National Guard. This is, you know, if it was, you know, a governor calling it the National Guard, that's different. These are federal troops. These guys are called out by the President of the United States.
In a second, I'm going to give you some criteria that you'll use to choose your 2 representatives. After you've picked those 2 people will come up front, and everybody else will head back to your regular seat. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to figure out who in your group has the fewest years of teaching experience and who has the most. Those will be the lucky winners that come up front, and then you can head back home. As you can tell from the looks on their faces, they're all excited to be up here. If you do this in your classroom, a couple things to think about. I always seed my kids with some questions ahead of time that they could anticipate when they testify. Helps to reduce their anxiety a little bit, helps to bring up the quality of their answers a little bit. When you do this with kids, this is a really good opportunity to do early in the year to help make sure that kids understand authorship, they understand about the context of documents, where you find it, and how it impacts information. Because as you'll see with the questions that I pose to those that are testifying, we really want to get at who's telling us this, when they're telling us it, and how that impacts the quality of the information that they're bringing to bear. So where are my source 1 folks? All right, source 1, where are we getting our information from, and why might that matter?
This is a telegram from the Secretary of War to General Douglas MacArthur. The information says that this was sent on the day of, and the text of the telegram indicates that the President has just informed Patrick Hurley of what's going on.
And why might it be an issue that we're getting this during the period of time that the events are occurring?
It adds to the immediacy. It hasn't had a chance to been run through the filters. They haven't had an opportunity to make it sound good, look good. This is immediate. These are the direct orders that are given to General Douglas MacArthur.
All right. And so according to your source, first off, who's responsible for removing the bonus army?
We had a lot of debate about this. The first paragraph of the telegram said the President has informed Hurley, Secretary of War, that the civil government is unable to maintain law and order. The next paragraph indicates that MacArthur is to cooperate fully with the District of Columbia Police Force, which is now in charge. So we feel that this is putting the responsibility directly on the police force, and MacArthur is given the instruction to work fully with the police who are in charge.
And then we took it from, it says informed. It doesn't say that the President said, hey, go take over this force, go, drive out all the people that are in there. He's saying the President has said, hey, this is how I feel about the people that are being involved. He doesn't ever say, go do something. So it's more or less Hurley's hearsay.
So you will have United States troops proceed immediately to the scene of the disorder is not clear enough that the President's ordering this to occur.
If we're going directly with the text of the telegram, specifically from a courtroom perspective, it does not say the President has given me this directive to give to you.
Plausible deniability.
So from your source's perspective, why were the bonus marches removed?
They were causing a problem. They were contributing to the District of Columbia's police department's inability to maintain law and order. And in fact, they are referred to as prisoners.
Audience, any issues with this source? Any red flags that kind of go up in your mind? What's the danger of using a source that's written right in the middle of an event? Yeah, emotion. You don't have all of the information. It tends to be clouded by the quote-unquote fog of war. So does the President have the full scope of information? Is he reacting to what's actually taking place on the ground? Definitely is a question. In history court, we always clap for our witnesses as they head back to their seats. So, all right, source 2, where are we getting our information from and why might it matter?
This is a press release from Herbert Hoover. And it's like from the horse's mouth. And he uses words like, calls the perpetrators lawless, mob rule, violence, agitators. And then he says that he will always uphold the law and do what's constitutionally correct and defend the Constitution. So it sounds like he feels like it sounds like he's made the order, and he's the one that has done, he's responsible.
When's he giving us this information?
It's the day after. It's the 29th. So I think source one was the 28th of July. So the day after.
All right. So, and you've already answered the next two questions. He seems to be taking direct responsibility, and he's done it to put down lawlessness. Studio audience, any issues or red flags that go up with source two? What's the problem with a press release? Who doesn't get to ask questions? The press. Instead of from the horse's mouth, this is from the horse's pen. And they hand it to the press, and that's it. So there's no back and forth, there's no questioning. This is very clearly the administration's view of what took place, and they want to control that particular piece of information. Source two, one quick question. The day before, we have an order that went from you to General Douglas MacArthur. Was this your order telling him to take care of business?
Yes.
All right. Round of applause.